Joining us on the line is Mark Meckler. He's president of the Convention of States Foundation and the Convention of States Action. Convention of States Action has over 5 million supporters and volunteers. You should go check them out today. Mark, thanks for joining the show.
Good to be with you, Ben.
So let's talk about the possibility of a vaccine passport. So the Biden administration is now backing off the idea of a vaccine passport because it's deeply unpopular. We've seen some governors like Andrew Cuomo sort of suggest a vaccine passport in the past. What sort of action should states be taking against a vaccine passport at this point?
I mean, first of all, I wouldn't trust the Biden administration in backing off. This is what they do. They'll float a test balloon. They get blowback. So they'll say they're not going to do it. But I do believe their intent is to be on their way to a national registry, just like they are with guns. What the states should be doing is stepping up boldly. A lot of states have done this. You have obviously Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida stepping up, signing an executive order against vaccine passports. You have Iowa saying they're going to act. South Carolina legislature is pressing. Kemp in Georgia pressing. Abbott in Texas here pressing, but really only halfway, not prohibiting private businesses from doing it, but prohibiting government from doing it. So I think that the states have to be stepping up and taking the lead and saying, this is a line we won't allow you to cross.
So, Mark, let's talk a little bit about states' rights right now, because it's pretty obvious that states in the Biden administration era are going to have to resist a lot of the federal mandates that are now being placed upon them. We saw, for example, in the aftermath of Joe Biden's executive actions on guns, a bunch of governors came out and they said, listen, we're going to become sanctuary gun states. We're just not going to help the federal government implement all of this. How effective would that be if states just said to the feds, you can pass whatever laws you want, but we are not helping you effectuate these laws?
Yeah, I actually think if it's done on a broad scale, it'd be very effective. It's a single state here and there. It's not very effective. But if they do it on a broad scale, it's going to be very difficult for the feds to enforce. And what the states are saying, in essence, when they're saying they're going to be sanctuary states is, we won't fund this stuff. We won't put our law enforcement officers on the line. We won't allow our state to fund efforts to enforce these things that you're passing. And that is something states actually have the absolute power to do. And I think they ought to do it in coordination amongst the states.
Okay, so as we look forward during the Biden administration, it looks like, again, this is going to become more and more common that states are going to be the great defenders against federal predations. How does this tie into the possibility of a convention of states, given the fact that Joe Biden and the rest of the Biden administration presumably are going to be violating the Constitution at every possible level?
I think it puts our organization in the sweet spot. For 8 years, we've been building towards this, knowing that this moment was coming, which is really the imposition of fascism nationally. So we now have 5 million members all across the country looking to call a convention of states. The main purpose, take the power away from the federal government and give it back to the states. But in the interim, we've got an army out there in the field. We've got volunteers in every single state legislative district and congressional district. And this pushback has to come from the states and the people in the states.
Okay, so looking forward, which governors are you seeing right now on the national stage? Because a lot of Republicans looking forward to 2024 already. And governors are sort of in a good position here as opposed to senators. Senators very often had to speak out with regard to things that President Trump did or didn't do. But if you're a governor, you basically got to avoid all of that by simply handling your state. Which governors are you looking at right now and saying to yourself, these are people who look like 2024 candidates?
Well, I think the leading contender has to be your governor there in Florida, Governor DeSantis, mainly because he not only walks the walk or talks the talk, but he walks the walk. He's actually proactively pursuing legislation to reform the voting system there. Even though there were no problems with the voting system there, he's telling cities in the state that if you defund the police, we're going to defund the state. He actually has the best anti-vaccine passport executive order of any governor in the country. He speaks Trump's language and he speaks to Trumpian voters without having Trump's personality flaws. So I think he'd be an extraordinary candidate. I would have said Kristi Noem a few weeks ago. I think her tent is basically folded based on what she did on the transgender issue there. I think those are the two leading contenders. I would say Abbott in Texas would like to be a contender, but he's actually sort of a false flag conservative. He says conservative things, but then only goes halfway to the finish line.
It's Mark Meckler. You can go check out what he's doing over at the Convention of States right now. Again, the importance of the states at this point cannot be overstated given the predations of the federal government. Mark, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ben.
I'm here live in Philadelphia at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. When you hear the phrase lives, fortunes, and sacred honor, these are the folks we should think of, those who anonymously gave their lives. Well, today you have a chance to volunteer. You need to volunteer for conventionofstates.com, the movement that's going to save the country. These folks are willing to step up and give everything. We need you to give just a little bit. Go to conventionofstates.com and volunteer today.